Welcome to Malpractice Podcast.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready too. Yay.
I'm Jess.
Oh, and I'm Sydney. And this is Malpractice Podcast.
Hell yeah.
We're a show about a variety of things.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Cats.
We talk about cats. We're here to talk about a variety of things, and we hope you're along for the ride and interested in those things. And if you're not, just fast forward for 10 seconds and we'll be talking about something else.
Right. We're quick to move on. We're quick to move on.
With a quickness.
You're not going to talk about you got in a car accident because of some asshole?
I did get in a car accident. It was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me to this day. We got rear-ended by what I think had to be a drunk driver, and then he or she, I don't want to discriminate. Definitely it was a he, though. Just very masculine energy. And he was in a very jacked up truck.
Cute.
Which I assume is like penis. It's about your penis, right?
It is.
Basically, he hit us from behind going really fast, and then he sped away. And then this guy comes up to us after, and he was like, I chased him down. I'm a witness. Like, I chased the truck down. I was going like 90 miles an hour on the highway. And I was like, you did not have to do that for me, sir. And he's like, no, you don't understand. My wife got rear-ended in a hit and run. I have like a personal vendetta. This guy was literally like looked like former military. He was like trying to be Batman. He was like dealing out vigilante justice. He was ready for it.
Batman. I love Batman.
Me too. Who's your favorite superhero? Batman honestly might be mine.
I mean,
he's so cool.
Let me be clear, okay? I don't know enough about any superhero for them to be my favorite. I do not know enough.
Even like
I do like the Hulk because it's a vibe. Anger. You know, it's a vibe.
Because he looks like my husband.
Does he? Huh.
Say I'm wrong.
I mean, he's got Eric vibes.
Right? You could see it. Oh, this is a Theranos trial update.
Okay, go ahead.
2 different jurors so far have been excused from the case because of, like, different reasons. Like, one of them said she's Buddhist, and it may result how she votes on the trial.
What the hell?
Because they believe in forgiveness. That's what she said. They believe in forgiveness.
But in theory, like, every single religion believes in forgiveness, except possibly Satanism. I'm not 100% on that.
Honestly, I feel like the Satanists get a bad rap. They get a bad rap because of the whole Satan thing, but I think most of their vibe is like, we don't want to be tied to a religion.
Right.
Right? Isn't that like...
And it sounds weird to put that in a sentence, but yeah. I've never heard of it.
It's true. It's true.
I like second guessed every single word, and I was like, nope, that checks out.
I second guess all my words. Oh, here's a little correction corner. I said something about nightshades being toxic. Nightshades are only toxic to like cats, mostly.
Well, you know what?
Nightshades,
is that not toxic?
Toxic to the people that I care about.
The people that you care about. You have a problem.
Literally. I have such a problem. I'm a crazy... If I wasn't married, I would be the epitome of a stereotypical crazy cat lady because I would adopt 100 cats. What else?
I saw another coyote.
Oh, you did?
I saw another coyote.
No.
I had pepper spray this time. This was a different kind of coyote, though. So the other coyote, I literally was screeching at it, and it ran away. It was like, she's crazy. This coyote, I was like, all right, I'm ready. Same vibes. Screecherton. This coyote stared at me in my eyes and was like, I don't give a fuck. Was the scariest. And it was smaller than Corey.
Yeah, coyotes are surprisingly... Like, coyotes are deceptively small.
It's like a fox size.
Yeah, you think they're like wolf size, but they're like like a big fox. I'm from like the rural... I lived on a farm. I grew up on a farm.
Yeah, I didn't know what you were going to say. I was like, just say you're from the farm.
Yeah, I'm from a farm.
Say you drove 50 minutes to get to school, because it's true.
Yeah. Certified horse girl right here.
Literally, yes. Had horses painted on her walls.
So my mom, when I was a kid, for one of my birthdays, had like an artist come and like draw horses on the walls, which is objectively dope. Like, it was very cool.
No, it's so pretty.
That being said, I'm 30 now. It's exactly how I left it when I walked out of it
Yes.
11 years ago.
Meanwhile, Bri and TT quickly flipped my room,
With
threw all of my shit in boxes, drove it to me, and they were like, here's all your baby pictures, your baby hair. They're like, what do you want to do with this? I was like, throw that shit in the trash. What do I? You're supposed to be the ones that want to keep this. I don't want to keep this.
I was that baby. Why do I need to remember?
Why do I want my teeth?
Yeah.
That's disgusting. I still have one in my mouth.
Dude, let's talk about parents keeping their kids' teeth. That is not okay.
It's weird.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Throw your children, give them to a dentist, do something with those that are not.
What does the dentist even want? What does the dentist want with that?
I don't know. I don't think they want it either.
That's like the same if you were like, they took out a kidney and you're like, can I keep it?
I mean, if they took out my kidney, I would want to keep it.
That's disgusting.
I'd keep it in a jar on a shelf.
It's kind of like keeping your toenail clippers thingies.
No, that's gross.
It's the same vibe if you keep a tooth. I could maybe write you a pass for the kidney, but if you keep teeth...
Like, everybody loses their teeth. It's like...
toenails.
Yeah, it's gross. Number one. Number two, my parents kept mine in, like, a decorative box. Like an intricate wood-carved box. And I remember one time I was snooping in my parents' shit when I was a kid, like you do.
As you should.
And I found...
I never did. I was so scared.
But, like, all of my baby teeth were in a decorative wooden box, and I was like, okay, A of all, I know the tooth fairy isn't real, because I know she didn't return this shit to you.
Right.
Why would she do that? And number two, why are you keeping these? Are y'all serial killers?
That is so weird.
Not a fan. I'm not.
What did they say when you confronted them?
My dad was like, yeah, you're right, the tooth fairy's fake, but if you keep pretending, we'll keep giving you money. And I was like, fair enough.
Dope.
I was like, that's really all I needed to hear. Thank you.
That's all thank you so much and good day.
Thank you for sharing the truth and thank you for the continued money. That's how we did it.
How much did you get from the tooth fairy?
Like $20 probably.
$20?
20 doll hairs, yeah.
That is that single child.
Yeah,
life.
that's that only child living.
I got $1.
$1.
My parents had they're pretending it's still the age in which they were brought up and there was no inflation. So they would be like,
yeah,
here's 50 cents for the store. I'm like,
what do I buy with 50 cents?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Number two, the second thing that happened in the Elizabeth Holmes Theranos case.
Oh, we have not gotten to number two yet. We were
full circle. So the former CEO of Safeway, because they were in discussion with Theranos about putting their machines in Safeways too.
Oh shit, okay.
Yeah, and he's like, I was really swept up in the idea that they could do this for cheap and that would be like helping people. And he said that he was captivated, that's the word he used, by Elizabeth Holmes. He called her charismatic and smart.
Well, she's not magical, so you're just...
Right. I mean, let's be clear. People call her captivating partially because they don't want to be like, I was an idiot.
Period. End of story. Actually, that's the whole story.
She was charismatic. She captivated me. It's like, was she captivating or were you captivated?
You have to pick one.
So, could be either. So, and then also he testified that she was definitely in charge.
Nobody,
all of the witnesses so far.
If she really thinks she's gonna go prove she wasn't in charge, nobody's buying it. Try again, sister girl.
Our listeners can't see this, but we're both wagging our fingers. No, absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
Big fat sack of no.
Because I'm pretty sure everyone else in the company saw all the shit and was like, what is crappening right now?
What is crappening right now? That's actually my favorite thing you've ever said.
Thank you.
I'm not even joking.
Thank you.
We love it.
Do you want to get started?
I'm ready to get into this. This is a crazy story today.
It has a theme song. I like it. Let's do this. No, ew.
So this is part 2 of my 2-parter about tobacco companies, because this is where it all started. I saw this movie, The Insider.
Okay.
Yeah, so I saw that movie and I was like, this is not true. The same way that when I watched that movie about the DuPont scandal,
yeah,
it's true. And then I went down a rabbit hole and I read court documents and
I'm so excited.
I'm ready to talk about it.
Let's do this.
It's really crazy. We're going to talk about Jeffery Wigand. Well, Dr. Jeffery Wigand. I call him Jeffrey or Dr. Jeff.
Jefferoony.
Because we friends like that. He's never met me.
Yeah.
And Brown and Williamson, which is
Sure.
the third largest tobacco company in the nation. It makes or made Cools and Capri cigarettes.
Okay.
And he became a 60 Minutes whistleblower. Even though he hates the name whistleblower, he says several times, like, I hate that name. Like, it's very negative. He said, like, he struggles with what he did and what he knew. He really does. Like, he says this over and over. He struggles with, this was bad. So he doesn't like any more negative connotation, but that's what he did. He, like, is a whistleblower.
Yeah.
So
that's what you are. Yeah.
Sorry about you, Dr. Jeff.
You hate it all you want, but that's what you is.
You is. And honestly, it shouldn't be a negative thing.
Yeah.
It should be an awesome thing.
I'm fine with a whistleblower.
And I will say, for the people who are keeping up with what's going on with Facebook right now, when I was telling Michelle about this episode and she was like, oh yeah, based on that movie, she was like, people will care about this because it's the exact same thing that's happening about Facebook right now.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It's like same vibes. A whistleblower who has scientific evidence that the company produced that they knew what they were doing is wrong and they did it anyway.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Ooh.
Like this is that's the episode actually.
Yeah.
So I'm done.
I love an episode like this, you know.
I do know.
You
I
know
wrote
it.
this thinking, oh, Sydney gonna like it.
And I do.
So in 1995, Dr. Jeffery Wigand got national attention when he blew the whistle on the company he worked for. He wasn't working for them at the time that he blew the whistle, just FYI, but he was under a confidentiality
agreement.
document.
Okay.
He was previously literally the vice president for research and development for Brown and Williamson Tobacco Company. I'm going to call them B&W, and like many of the sources call them B&W.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. He was like, fuck y'all and your lies, and eventually reported on the company's manipulation of research on the effect of nicotine in tobacco products. Wigand was trapped in a war between the government and its attempts to regulate the $50 billion tobacco industry and the tobacco companies themselves, which insisted that the government had no place in their affairs. So he was basically in the most uncomfortable place in the entire world because at the time that he was basically quitting his job / getting fired, like making this whole life transition, being attacked by all sides. Like they're like, you're a hero. And people are like, you're the devil. And he's just like, I'm just a guy.
Yeah.
That was him.
Just try to do the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. It all comes down to eventually him just deciding I had to do the right thing. So
yeah,
I want to start with who is Jeffery Wigand before like all of this. So he's the episode's hero. So I want to give him the attention he deserves because in interviews, people that interviewed him would be like, you know, let's start, like, give me your history. And he would start at his time as the vice president of research and development for B&W.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't think about, like, what he did previously. He actually did, like, a bunch of really cool stuff.
Oh, cool.
So he was born in 1942, #boomer, in New York City. He's the eldest of 5 kids from a Catholic family. His father was a mechanical engineer. He allegedly had a very strict upbringing, allegedly being, like, his siblings mentioned this, that it was, like, really rough in their house.
Yeah.
He was a great student, specifically thriving in chemistry and biology. That's crazy. He becomes a biochemist.
Nice.
He actually wanted to become a doctor. At one point, he gets married several times. At one point, one of his wives, he wanted to be a doctor, and his wife was like, you're too old. Like, relax. You're not going to be a doctor. Like, move on.
Rude. You're never too old.
Right. He then attended Dutchess Community College where he was running cross country and he worked at Vassar Brothers Hospital. I believe he worked as a scrub nurse there. 1 year during college, he just dropped out and joined the Air Force.
Okay.
His brother said it was to get away from his parents. Honestly, from the way his brother talks about it, I think he was just like, you know what? I'm about to make everybody upset because apparently his parents did not want him to do that.
Oh.
We love that.
Okay.
You know, live your life.
I mean, I get it. Yeah.
He went to Japan and he ran an operating room there for the Air Force. And then he was also, during that time, volunteering to teach English at a Catholic orphanage in Japan.
Aww.
I know. And then he spent time in Vietnam. Like, they sent him to Vietnam, but he didn't spend much time there. And he was like, there wasn't much going on there. I don't really know why the Air Force sent me there. After he returned to the States, he went to State University of New York at Buffalo, where he received his bachelor's in chemistry, his master's in biochem, and then his PhD in biochemistry in 1973.
Wow.
We love a science guy.
Love it.
He met and fell in love with Linda, and they married in 1971, so during his PhD.
Oof. It's a hard time to get married.
That's what my parents did. Living the dream.
During your dad's PhD, that's when they got married? I didn't know that. That's so cute.
Yeah.
Little babies.
Yeah. He spent the next 17 years actually working in healthcare. So this was like a really interesting point for me that I'm like, wait a minute, how did he get to be working at a tobacco company?
Yeah.
But I think it's because they wanted someone in that position that had the healthcare background.
Right.
But we'll see that they didn't actually give one single solitary flip about anything in healthcare.
Yeah. They were just doing it for like visuals.
Yeah. He started working as a researcher at
Boring Mannheim.
Corporation.
Boringer.
I don't know, but he was making like $20,000 there. That was his like starting point, and I know that because I know how much he was making at his prime, and it's crazy.
Yeah, researchers make no money.
Correct. Then he was the director of corporate development at Pfizer, and then a general manager and marketing director at Union Carbide in Japan. Later, as a senior vice president of marketing at Technicon Instruments, he was responsible for a state-of-the-art plant that optimized the manufacturing facility for biological compounds. So he was not a stupid guy. He was super smart and great at his job.
Yeah.
He was running that position for Technicon Instruments in actually Japan. And he divorced from his wife, who went back to the States without him. She actually had multiple sclerosis, and she was not well. And he admits that he did not handle her illness well. He like watched her get progressively worse.
Yeah.
And it caused him to just pull away because he like could not handle the fact that she was getting worse. And they also had like a newborn who he just like basically was like, go live with your mom. Like, I can't.
Ugh.
This is really sad. Yeah.
I can't do this. Yeah.
Yeah. But they got a divorce.
Oh, that's so rough.
I mean, shade on how you didn't help your wife. Like, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Big shade on that. But I think she did end up passing away, and then his daughter was raised by her parents. He said at one point, I let her be raised by loving grandparents.
That's not ideal. Hopefully,
didn't
pay
fight
child
them
support.
Not a perfect guy.
Probably should have a little guilt.
Yeah, sometimes we need the guilt.
Yeah.
He later returned to the U.S. to work for Johnson & Johnson. He met and married Lucretia, who was a J&J sales rep, in 1986. And he got a job at Brown & Williamson's, B&W, in 1989 and was fired in 1993. I believe it was March.
Okay.
So let's get into that. So now we know from last week that nicotine is like hella addictive and not good for anyone. There's lots of other chemicals too, but nicotine is like specifically problematic because it's the addictive like properties.
Yeah.
Obviously, these companies are in the business of selling these products. So it makes sense that they would want to know as much as they can in a cover your ass kind of situation, which is why they had research and development departments.
That's interesting. Yeah.
From his first meetings with Alan Hurd, who was the head of R&D for BAT Industries, and BAT Industries are the British American tobacco companies, which basically is the conglomerate that owns B&W.
Okay.
Wigand, Jeffrey, shut his eyes and like ignored the arrangement.
Basically,
he like knew that this was some shady shit. He had inklings in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Alan Hurd said he wanted to develop a new cigarette to compete with Premier, which is a product made by R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, which had very little tar. That appeal was very seductive for a man like Jeffrey, who had a lot of pride in his own research skills.
Yeah.
So, like, he wanted to be the person to, like, save people's lives.
Yeah.
And he was very driven by, like, getting credit and recognition for stuff. He admittedly says that. So he was super excited. His new title would be the head of R&D for B&W. He would be paid more than he had ever earned in his life, $300,000 a year in 1993. That's like a lot.
Yeah.
Right now, that's a lot.
Yeah.
His department would have like a budget of more than $30 million, a staff of 243.
Wow.
Shortly after he began the interviews, Jeffrey took up smoking.
Yeah.
Which he hadn't done before. He later said, like, oh, I was buying the routine. Like, I wanted to understand the science of how it made you feel. But it's also in reports that every executive at B&W smoked.
Yeah.
And they would smoke publicly. And then in conference rooms just with them, they talk about how bad smoking was for you.
Oh, wow.
But they were all smoking.
To be fair, though, I feel like if you're going to be the head of R&D or an executive in a tobacco company, I want you to smoke.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to sell that product publicly, you better believe in it personally.
Well, he got to the point where he stopped smoking and started encouraging his friends, the other executives, to stop smoking because it was going to give them cancer.
Oh, shit.
So the more he got into his job, the more he was like, wait a minute.
Wait 1 second.
Wait a minute, we gonna
Yeah.
die. Yeah, literally.
Okay.
So while he was working for B&W, he lived in a huge house, like over 8,000 square feet in one of Louisville's, Kentucky's fanciest locations.
Mm-hmm.
His children went to the best schools. He had a company car. He played golf at the country club all the time. He took his wife on business trips. He was like first class. They had like a company jet.
Must be fucking nice.
Literally the dream. He was making a ton of money. So that's that, right? But then flashback to when he first toured the B&W lab. He was like shooketh because he describes it as being super old.
Oh.
The place looked like a high school chemistry lab from the 1950s. There was old-fashioned smoking machines. There was no fundamental science being done at all.
Yeah.
There was not a toxicologist nor a physicist on staff, which Jeff found very unsettling.
Yeah.
How, he thought, could you be serious about studying the health aspects of tobacco or fire safety without the experts to lead those studies?
Yeah.
So all of that to say, I wanted to say this. He had a good life set up, right?
Yeah.
That was funded by this company. He had no reason to be at odds with this company. Arguably, this action that we will discuss is like a selfless thing that he ended up doing.
Yeah.
But I also want to mention that he himself says he was fueled by opportunity and power at the company. And even though he never kept his mouth closed when he had a thought about something was right or wrong, he is admittedly like a very abrupt person. He rubs people the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't very political.
Yeah.
In meetings. He'd be like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Same.
Like, quite plainly. Yeah. And he did go along with the company culture for a long time, but I wanted to put that in here because I think it illustrates that he was having this internal conflict from his very first tour. He was like, wait a minute.
But they were offering him a deal that he, like, couldn't turn down, too.
You know, you can say he could have turned it down, but, like, in that moment... Would you?
Would I? No.
I want to say one of his daughters had like a very severe health issues that she had to receive medical attention like daily for her health issues.
Yeah.
And I believe like the pull of like good insurance is another thing that kind of keeps people in jobs that maybe they wouldn't normally stay in because of the healthcare crisis, really.
Yeah. I mean, and stability and money too is really important when you have a loved one who needs that kind of treatment, I'm sure.
Yeah. Plus you're making good money and you're like on private jets, like, you know?
Like objectively he had a good setup. Like it's hard to blame someone for that, especially as a PhD student, to go from making $20,000 a year to $300,000 a year. It's life-changing.
Yeah. So Jeffrey did not do a lot at first. He was arguing with people. He's asking a bunch of questions. Eventually, he would come to say on air to reporters that the CEO, Thomas Sandifer, who admittedly, Jeffrey and Thomas was not friends from like day one.
Okay.
They did not like each other.
Not pals.
Jeffrey said that Thomas had lied to Congress in a recording. He was being called and he was sitting on a panel with all of these tobacco executives and they all lied.
Yeah.
They all lied to Congress.
Oh.
But Jeffrey said, I can't speak to them lying, but I can speak to what Thomas actually knows. Yeah. And he is actually lying because I know what he knows. And he said nicotine isn't harmful.
Because I told him stuff.
Like, he knows.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey found there are documents that say that the company knew that nicotine was harmful 30 years prior.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
Yeah. Jeffrey said that on the stand when Thomas said chemicals were not addictive, that he had perjured himself on the stand. And that's a huge statement to make, right, on a 60 Minutes interview.
Yeah.
Jeffrey said that they lied by denying the language that was commonly used in the company because they would use phrases like, we're in the nicotine delivery business and cigarettes are the vehicles.
Oh, wow. That's aggressively bad.
B&W manipulates and adjusts the nicotine fix, not by adding more nicotine, but by adding chemicals like ammonia or what they called ammonia chemistry. This is known as like impact boosting to the products themselves that would make nicotine worse. So they weren't like adding more nicotine. They could never say that they were doing that, but they were adding other chemicals that were making the nicotine worse for people.
Okay. That made the effect of nicotine stronger or something like that?
Yes, and it would impact your body quicker.
Oh, okay.
So all of this delivery of information comes out when Jeffrey is in his interview with like CBS 60 Minutes, right?
Wow.
Basically, he revealed everything. So he said the process is described in B&W Lead Blenders Manual, so their internal documents.
Mm-hmm.
And other internal documents. So there's like all these books that are like 2 inches thick of like different manuals and processes. And all of this has common knowledge.
Yeah.
Ammonia chemistry allows for more nicotine to be absorbed in the lungs. And then it affects the brain and central nervous system quicker.
Woof.
And they knew that. It was like specifically stated. I linked the 60 Minutes interview so you can watch it. It's like the script, it like puts a picture of it from the handbook.
Right. And so it's like just the idea that ammonia chemistry is present tells you that they knew it was addictive, because why would they be boosting the effects of nicotine otherwise?
And those are not secret documents. Those are the handbook for employees. There are thousands and thousands of other secret documents that came out, and I'll tell you what happened.
I want to hear them all.
All of this confidential research and reports and legal memos that supported Jeffrey's claims that the executives knew all the horrible things they were doing, those documents were locked away until one man, a paralegal named Merrill Williams, walked out with the documents.
In his hand?
He was like, "Oh, this is crazy."
He had like a box?
and revealed them to some sort of news people.
You know that scene on Mean Girls where she copies pictures of the burn book and then she throws them up into the air?
Yeah.
That's what he's doing.
That was him. Yes.
Yeah. Love that.
And in the 60 Minutes interview, you see a picture of him, like just walking down the street. He was just like, "This is crazy." In those documents was also proof of 2 research and development departments. The term aerial and hippo were thrown around at some parties. So I want to say this because it was always crazy to Jeffrey that there was no research already done. But then he was hearing these names like, "Oh, aerial that was a horrible moment for us." People were like, he was like, "What is aerial?" And he didn't drink. So at parties when everybody else is drinking and getting like loose-lipped, he didn't.
Okay.
He was like having a Diet Coke. So he was like, "What is aerial?" And they're like, "Oh, it's crazy." And he was like,
Go on.
They were thrown around at parties, and he was like trying to figure out what those were. In these documents that Merrill released, he discovered when Jeffrey was reading through them that those were research studies on health-related issues conducted in the 1970s by the company that revealed that they knew from the 70s that nicotine and all of these, that basically smoking caused cancer.
So aerial and hippo were like code words for those studies.
Code names.
Wow.
Yes.
Feels like we're back in MK Ultra.
Isn't it crazy?
Crazy.
So those documents found their way to Dr. Stanton Glantz. He's a professor of medicine and was leading like a team of scientists at the University of California Medical Center in San Francisco. And those people blasted them apart.
Okay.
They wrote a series of articles about B&W and all of their bullshit and published them in the Journal of American Medical Association.
They said, "I'm throwing shade."
Literally, the documents basically said that B&W and the parent company, the British American Tobacco, BAT, right, knew 30 years prior that nicotine was an addictive drug and knew smoking caused cancer and other diseases too, like we talked about last week.
Yeah.
The documents also revealed that based on that knowledge, that they had developed sophisticated legal strategies to keep that information away from the public and the public health authorities.
Bitches.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like in their secret documents that they were like, "This is how you phrase everything." And we'll get into like other ways that they were saying that also to Dr. Jeff, because he was like confused about why they couldn't say things a certain way.
Right.
And it's because they had these legal strategies that would protect them from lawsuits.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
Shady.
It's crazy, right? And Dr. Glantz is not to be trifled with. So on the 60 Minutes interview, he's in there and he is angry. You can see him. He is like, "They lied." Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So they asked him in the 60-minute interview about cigarettes being basically a nicotine delivery system like Jeffrey had said? And he was like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he went on to say that the internal documents mentioned using those specific words over and over, that cigarettes were a nicotine delivery system.
Oh, wow.
Don't play with Dr. Glantz.
That's crazy.
So, Jeffrey Wright was hired to reduce the carcinogens in the B&W products. That's what he wanted to do when he started.
Yeah.
He knew the company was working towards being safer and healthier for its customers. At least that's what they told him.
And he wanted to be like a part of that.
Yes. He said people are going to smoke no matter what. No matter what regulations that we put on them, they're going to smoke. So he wanted to provide for those who were smoking anyway.
Yeah.
So when he started, he had a bunch of questions.
Sure.
Have you done any nicotine studies before? Biological studies, pharma studies? And they all said that they hadn't, which pissed him off even more when he read that they had done the studies, right?
Yeah, sure. They lied.
It would like encourage him when they were like, no, we've never done that. That's a great place to start. And the other way, he was like, wait, why have you not studied any of this before? Jeffrey wasn't worried about anything specifically. He was just confused for the entire first couple of years of working there.
Yeah.
Until he attended an international meeting in Vancouver, British Columbia. It was a meeting of scientists from the British American Tobacco BAT companies.
Yeah.
The scientists from this meeting were all on the Jeffrey page of, yeah, let's make a better, safer cigarette. He was excited. Everyone was hyped. They're like, yeah, that's a great idea. We're on this. We're all thinking the same thing in our little silos.
Yeah.
Let's come together. Let's work together. Great idea. They were there to discuss this possibility of a nicotine substitute to make smoking healthier. They were all on board about figuring that out. So when they started to write down their ideas, B&W lawyers actually intervened.
Okay.
Ray Thornton, a British scientist, and Kendrick Wells, one of the staff attorneys at B&W, have both been accused of rewriting the minutes and distributing them post the international meeting separately. So I don't know who actually did it. They might have tag teamed, but I'm putting both their names out here.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
They, or one of them, did edit those distributed discussions and distributed them because Jeffrey saw the notes afterwards and was like, that's not what we discussed at all.
Yeah.
And when asked on the 60 Minutes interview about that, he said, yes, Kendrick Wells sanitized, quote unquote, the minutes and took out everything related to those conversations, even though those conversations 100% happened.
There's some shady business from both of them, possibly. To me, it's like, why are you even having these international meetings of scientists? Like, why are you hosting them?
Well, it's like a PR thing, right?
Oh, you're right. You're right. They're like, hi, get together, but don't talk too hard.
Literally.
Yeah.
So when pressed, because in the interviews and all the articles I read, people were like, well, why did they censor the notes? And he said, Jeffrey said, from a product's liability point of view, when you say you're creating a safer cigarette, then people could infer that the cigarettes you have now are not in fact safe, which we know they're not.
Yeah.
And this was part of the strategy, right, to prevent lawsuits. According to B&W files, lawyers had advised any mention of a safer product to be taken out of record because if anyone were to sue the company, those would certainly be called into that case. So you never said you're making anything safer or preventing like anything because that's when you can get sued for not have been doing that before.
Right. Because that implies that the first product that you have out was not safe or that the first product did cause cancer.
Yes. Less hazardous, quote unquote, and safer, quote unquote, mentions around products are always removed. Less hazardous, can't say that because then the other one was hazardous. We're not doing that.
Right.
From any record of a conversation and quote unquote increased biological activity and reports that were actually codes for cancer and other diseases. So they would just replace them with increased biological activity.
That means nothing. Increased biological activity is a nonsense phrase.
Yes.
I'm sure a lawyer came up with that.
Exactly. So Jeffrey, when he saw that, he was like, I'm about to, because he was not like the nicest or easiest person to work with.
Right.
So he was like, I'm about to ask a million questions.
Yeah.
And I'm about to be annoying as fuck. And he was. He bought new computers for the R&D facility. He hired a physicist, a toxicologist. He worked on reverse engineering Marlboros.
Marlboros, yeah.
He attempted to discern their unique properties. He studied fire safety and ignition propensity, all of that actual work he was doing was setting off internal alarm bells because obviously no one had been doing it before when he saw the state of the lab, right? Nobody had been doing real research. So he was like buying stuff, he was like doing stuff, and people were like, whoa, Jeffrey's onto something. We need to shut it down.
Squash him, yeah.
Yes. So they started with, if Jeffrey was in any meeting, he was accompanied by what he called a bodyguard who happened to be Kendrick Wells, the lawyer who rewrote the minutes. So Kendrick would be with Jeffrey all the time, essentially. Like if he's in any public setting.
Oh my God.
And Jeffrey took his complaints about that and about all the things he was figuring out to Thomas Sandifer, remember the guy who he said lied?
To Congress.
Who was at that time the president of B&W and would eventually become the CEO. When Jeffrey spoke to Thomas, Thomas said, I do not want to hear any more discussion about a safer cigarette. And he went on to say, if we pursue a safer cigarette, it would out us as at an extreme exposure with every other product. And I don't want to hear about it anymore. The gasp.
Oh my God. He's like just right out there blazing in the open. Brazen is the word I was looking for.
He's blazing cigarette
He's blazing
companies.
and brazen.
So Jeffrey got really pissed off.
Yeah.
He bit his tongue at first and abandoned his idea for a safer cigarette and focused on the additions to products like flavorings or other compounds. He was like, okay, you don't want to hear about a safer cigarette? Fine. Well, I'm going to focus on some other shit that needs to be fixed too.
Let's add mint flavoring to them. Let's make a menthol cigarette.
So glycerol, for example, is extremely harmful when it's burned. It turns into another substance called acrolein.
Sure.
Basically, glycerol is put into tobacco products to keep it moist. So when it's lit and turns into acrolein, we have another problem. It's irritating and it interferes with the normal cleaning of the lungs and essentially acts as a carcinogen, but at the time had not been classified as one yet.
Okay.
So he was really focusing on that one. That was a terrible addition that came from his research and development. But the things I've mentioned weren't the last straw for Jeffrey. He literally says the straw that broke the camel's back was coumarin.
Okay.
When coumarin came up, he was so upset. It's a flavoring that's basically like sweet. It's an additive that has a pretty close makeup to that of the compound found in rat poison. It was known at that time to cause tumors in the livers of mice. So it had already been studied. B&W said that they had stopped using it, but internal documents showed that it was used in pipe tobacco there until 1992.
Wow. It's also like, why? Like, I have so many questions. Why?
Because they all were using it.
But it's like...
all the tobacco companies were using it.
They're using it as a sweet flavoring. Like, can't you just do something different to make it sweet? I'm sure I 100% know you can. So
they were like constantly like trying to transition away, according to them, right? Even according to Jeffrey. So right before he joined, they tried to transition away from that specific compound, but it didn't happen because they couldn't find a good enough replacement to maintain the taste.
Okay.
Of like the sweetness. Yeah, I know you're like, who cares? But that was like... There's another company, I can't remember the name, the other tobacco company, who tried to do the same thing, and they like quit all of their research and development for replacing some sort of compound because the people were like, nope, it doesn't taste the same. I won't buy it.
That's crazy. I feel like though, if people knew all the facts and they were like, yeah, okay, but this one gives you cancer and this one doesn't, it's like not even a competition, right?
Jeffrey obviously wanted that out immediately, and I would agree with you that makes no sense. He was told that it would affect sales, and he needed to mind his own business.
This is my business. You're paying me to mind this business.
So he promptly drafted a memo to the president, which was Thomas, that said he could not continue knowing that they were using coumarin as a product since it was a carcinogen. He was like, look, my dog, like there's a lot of things I will turn a blind eye to. This rat poison ain't it.
Yeah. Good for him.
So Thomas Sandifer and B&W ignored the health considerations. They told him they would continue to look for a replacement, but they would keep using it. And again, he was told to mind his business in like a formal rebuttal.
Yeah.
When Thomas Sandifer was promoted to CEO, Jeffrey pretty much knew what would come next, and he was fired.
Yeah.
He was fired because, quote, poor communication skills, quote, not cutting it, quote, poor performance.
Yeah. That's like totally retaliatory firing.
Yes.
Cool.
His contract provided severance and critical health benefits for his family. So that is nice because of what I said about his children. Even while his severance was being paid out, they could remain on health insurance so that his daughter could get
that's good.
the help that she needed. And that was kind of part of their negotiating tactics, right? They were like, don't you love your daughter?
Yeah.
Like, sign this form.
Wow, yeah.
But a couple months after his release, B&W sued him and stopped his severance and that health care. And they did this because he discussed his severance package, according to them, and actually according to facts. Like, he mentioned something to a couple of his friends who worked at B&W about, like, what his severance package was, but he had signed a confidentiality agreement, and they considered that breaching confidentiality, so they cut his severance. They end up, like, having to return to paying out his severance, but he did, like, it was the whole thing just about the confidentiality agreement.
Yeah, but, like, they're trying to be bitches.
Yes, 100%. So even though his life was a mess, like, he came close to actually finding another job that was, like, pretty good pay after he was fired, but he was not able to, like, balance finding a job plus, like, the B&W lawsuits. So, like, that one didn't pan out.
Yeah.
Then he connected with Lowell Bergman, who would end up taking him to and through his 60 Minutes interview. So all of this happens, and there's some time that passes before he even speaks to anyone about what had happened.
Yeah.
There is a lot of information on this specific piece in the Vanity Fair article I linked in my notes, so please check it out if you want any more on the process of how Lowell got Jeffrey to actually give his interview, because it is crazy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of effort. Lowell went through to try and protect Jeffrey and fighting with executives at CBS to actually, like
air the interview, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The original CBS 60 Minutes episode was not allowed to be released because CBS was following the case pretty closely, and their lawyer was worried that they were going to be dragged into the circus, and actually, like, I believe B&W did file a lawsuit against them as well.
For, like, slander or something like that?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
However, what really put all of that in place, all of the interview actually being aired in place, the Wall Street Journal got hold of a deposition that Jeffrey had given in a Mississippi case that essentially held Jeffrey's same comments as he was going to give in the 60 Minutes interview. So CBS was like, okay, well, the information's already out there. I'm going to run the interview.
Yeah, fair. That makes sense. Which is kind of chicken shit of CBS if you think about it.
100%.
Cool.
100%. And literally, Jeffrey isn't, like, the best personal guy, but, like, he is so isolated.
Oh, shit.
We'll hear, like, people are threatening him, threatening his family, and he goes to CBS. They say they're going to protect his identity, all of that. They don't, right? His identity gets leaked. Like, it's really ugly. So in the spring of 1994, the FDA and Congress contacted Jeffrey. They were investigating the tobacco industry, part of which was whether or not Sandiver had lied to them. Spoiler alert, he did. He notified B&W that he'd be speaking to those investigators. So he did tell them, like, look, this is the government. Like, I'm not going to hide behind your confidentiality agreement.
Right, yeah.
Later that year, he received death threats on his children. In the interview, he says, he described it as there's this male voice that said, don't mess with tobacco. How are your kids? And then a second call that was like, a male voice again, leave tobacco alone or else you'll find your kids hurt. They're pretty girls now.
Creepy.
And someone called his wife also and threatened to kill him and hurt the family.
You said they're pretty girls now, and it literally gave me a chill. I was like,
it's
no,
disgusting.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. Yes.
That would be really hard personally to go through that. I wonder if he ever regretted it.
Every single interview asks him that. Do you regret it? Do you wish you hadn't done anything? Just taken the money, resigned, whatever. Ultimately, he says he felt compelled to do it, and he thought it was worth it as long as people saw the truth. And according to Jeffrey's brother, James, he was like, if them being the tobacco industry, think that they can intimidate and threaten him, they have picked the wrong person. He said he was hella stubborn.
Yeah.
As difficult as he was in the work environment, how difficult do you think he's going to be outside the wall to the people paying him.
Good for him.
The state attorneys general of Florida, Minnesota, and Mississippi all saw that truth.
Yeah.
They were leading the charge against the tobacco industry on behalf of 7 states at the start. So the attorney general of Mississippi, he was afraid of Jeffrey's life with his testimony. He literally says in the 60-minute interview, like, yes, I thought he was going to be killed. Like, he said that what Jeffrey had revealed to them was the biggest fraud to the American people, and tobacco knew it was Jeffrey that controlled their fate. So they all took threats to his life super seriously. He said they lied to the American public and killed millions of people and made a profit off of it. So they wanted the states, the tobacco companies, to take on the healthcare burden caused by tobacco products.
That makes sense to me.
Correct. Jeffrey is a key witness in that singular legal attempt by those 7 states to seek reimbursement of Medicaid expenses resulting from smoking-related illnesses. So each year, over 425,000 Americans die of these illnesses caused by smoking. Through tax money that goes to Medicaid, the general population pays for a significant portion of the billions of dollars of healthcare costs.
Yeah.
So they were saying, no, you caused it.
You paid for it.
Right.
You
broke it, you bought it.
Yeah, totally.
Like, period.
That makes sense.
But due to that lawsuit, and then B&W found out that they were using Jeffrey as a witness, they got a court order silencing Jeffrey from the state of Kentucky. Spoiler alert, he ends up giving testimony anyway.
Yeah, good for him.
which is the deposition that the Wall Street Journal ends up like putting out there so that his CBS 60 Minutes interview can go out.
Right. He's like, you can't silence me.
He's like, well, he was really scared.
Yeah, sure.
He's like, well, this is some real shit. But
also it's like you've gone that far. If you stop now, what's the point?
Yeah, that's true. There's a lawyer that B&W told to talk to CBS on the 60 Minutes interview. Love this part because he looks dumb. His name is Gordon Smith. He was asked if all the stuff in the report, according to the Wall Street Journal, was trash. And he said it was dead wrong, that the Wall Street Journal did not go over these scores of untruths told by Jeffrey. There was this big smear campaign that was very personal. So Jeffrey had really good notes from his employer, B&W.
Yeah.
While he was working. They were like, he's a great worker. He's doing the best. He's like building team. Then in his last year, it changed.
Yeah.
But none of that was in the smear campaign by B&W. Yeah. Basically, the lawyer Smith said that anything that Jeffrey put out and his lawyer put out was fake, that they had negotiated that positive note from the severance package. And then Smith is like, we can't even trust you as a journalistic entity, CBS, because you are actually paying Jeffrey as a consultant.
Okay.
And the interviewer's like, whoa. What the fuck are you talking about? So B&W was just throwing shit against the wall to see what would stick.
So
I want to talk a bit about what B&W did to set out to destroy his reputation with that smear campaign. So whenever he became like a witness for the states, and they were like, oh, he's probably going to start working against us, they set out to like literally rip apart his reputation. So they hired the Investigative Group International to create a 500-page dossier on Jeffrey, which was then pushed out to the media.
Who would read 500 pages?
And no one would read it, right? That's the point.
That's crazy.
No one's going to read it.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a bad guy. They're like, he beats his wife. He was shoplifting, fudging his resume, which why would you have hired him? Like, you look stupid as a company. And something about like $95 for dry cleaning. It was really long. And like they just like said he's a bad guy. Like just started throwing shit at.
He doesn't clean his cat's litter box enough. What about that?
He doesn't water his plants every day.
What about that?
According to a New York publication, a B&W rep, John Scanlon, claimed that Jeffrey was a bad guy, quote unquote, a habitual liar, a spousal abuser. They were just like basically hiring like a PR specialist.
Yeah.
And like putting out all of this stuff about making him look bad.
Right.
However, we love journalists and they fact check things because they're not stupid.
Yeah.
So they found like 90% of it was unsubstantiated or trivial and basically said as much in their reports.
Yeah.
So, in fact, the publication that B&W was relying on to print it said, after reading this, we're going to check every allegation.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Because their reputation is on the line if they publish it.
Yeah. But, like, Jeffrey and his team of lawyers basically were just, like, at war. So it came to blows and hiring the top people on both sides, and they're just, like, attacking each other.
Yeah.
At an anti-smoking awards ceremony, so Jeffrey started to get involved in, like, the anti-smoking community.
Oh.
And he got an award. He said this about that specific smear campaign. Something terrible happened to me. Brown and Williamson has gotten private records from a Louisville courthouse. A local TV reporter has come to my school to ask about my marriage. They are trying to ruin my life. When I get back to Louisville, I may not have a job. I have 5 sets of lawyers who are representing me, and no one can agree on a strategy. Then he said, without any real emphasis, if they are successful in ruining my credibility, no other whistleblower will ever come out of tobacco and do what I have done.
He's right.
So B&W tried to discredit him, and they filed a lawsuit against him.
Yeah.
Duh. Because he shared that. I was waiting for the pin to drop. But the suit was eventually dismissed as part of the 1997-1998 $360 billion settlement between the attorney generals and the tobacco industry that I alluded to last week that he was the witness on. They put that in the settlement, you can't sue him anymore.
Love that, yeah.
Leave this man alone.
We like
He's
him.
our friend. After all this craziness settled down, he taught chemistry for a bit and Japanese at DuPont Manual Magnet High School in Louisville, Kentucky. I say settled down, but actually it was still pretty crazy when he started teaching. TV vans would park outside the school wait for him.
Yeah.
He actually worked and he really enjoyed teaching. He said of his time teaching, I make a difference every day. And he was named Teacher of the Year in 1996 for the entire state of Kentucky.
Jeffrey.
Isn't that crazy? Jeffrey. And one of the articles was the journalist was in his classroom and they said that he turned it on when he was teaching Japanese. He was just a different, he was so happy in that place.
Good for him.
Okay. So he now established himself as a lecturer, an expert witness, and a consultant on tobacco-related policies for other governments like Canada, the Netherlands, Scotland, Israel, Malta, Germany, France, Ireland, Iceland, and Japan.
Cool.
He has also started a nonprofit called Smoke Free Kids, Inc. I found his LinkedIn. It says CEO. But he did, and maybe still does, have a dog. One of his lawyers bought him so that he would not be alone. So he had a dog.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. According to him, he's paid his penance. So he thinks that him working for that company and taking that money, he's paid.
Because he probably feels like he took blood money, if they're killing people. Yeah.
Yeah. His kids are super proud of him. He's really proud of himself, and his kids stand up for him. As recently as 2005, he took the stand in a case against the major cigarette companies. So he's still their number one person of interest.
Guy.
Yeah.
Their go-to guy, yeah.
In a New York Times article about this whole situation, I've linked in the notes, a man approached Jeffrey and started yelling at him while he was being interviewed by a reporter.
Yeah.
He was screaming at him and had a tobacco company logo on his shirt. And Jeffrey is a pretty low-key guy, which made it all the more disheartening when the man verbally assaulted him.
Yeah.
And then the journalist was seeing him. And it reminded him, Jeffrey said, that about the passions around tobacco are really high. And he said to get to the truth and to get the truth out has been such an effort. It's still an effort.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's what I know about that.
My God. Wow. This is crazy. It feels reminiscent of the DuPont Chemical, number one. A giant corporation poisoning people, one whistleblower.
One man.
Solo dolo taking them down.
Isn't this crazy?
Do you know what happened with the tobacco companies having to pay back Medicare costs or Medicaid costs?
They lost the lawsuit. So it's over $300 billion, the settlement that they're paying through 2025.
I also know that they were being forced to fund those anti-smoking campaigns.
So they had to take down all of their billboards and replace them pretty much with anti-smoking.
With anti-smoking campaigns, yeah. all of this information is public now.
Mhm.
But, like, I didn't know this, and this happened in the 90s. That was 30 years ago.
This is, like, the kind of thing that when they have those, like, no smoking weeks, this is the kind of thing, like, that movie should be part of the, like, curriculum for high schoolers.
It totally should, yeah. Also, those dead rats on packages, and it's like, smoking contains rat poison. How do you need to hear more?
I don't. I barely want to hear
If you told me one thing I was doing had rat poison in it, I'd be like, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. Rat poison sounds like the worst thing that could possibly be in my life. Couldn't be me.
Well, that's what I know, guys.
I'll never look at a cigarette the same.
Did you like it?
I loved it. It's so good sometimes to hear these, like, positive stories about, like, someone who did the right thing. If you're still with us, you're still listening.
You're a favorite.
You're a favorite. Go smash that subscribe button.
Smash it.
And leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Ratings and reviews really help us increase visibility, and they're a big deal for us personally.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they increase my self-esteem. So
same.
But thank you for listening, sticking through. It's crazy out here. If you have a recommendation, you want us to cover something, send us a DM. We love a listener reco. We will do it.
Absolutely. And don't forget, malpractice
makes perfect.
Makes perfect.
That's
fine.
actually fine.
It's fine.